Hi everyone, I'm here today with Eve Mailer. Eve is president and founder of Ven Factory and an award-winning digital identity strategist whose work has influenced how people, organizations, and technologies establish identity, exchange data, and operate securely at scale. From early internet standards such as XML to identity-defining protocols including SAML and User-Managed Access, Eve has helped build the underlying systems that enterprises around the world rely on every day. Her career in identity spans 26 years, from technology director at Sun Microsystems to chief technology officer at ForgeRock, where she brought identity innovation strategy to dozens of global 5,000 brands. As a former Forrester Research security analyst and now founder of Ven Factory, Eve transforms companies' digital identity strategies from a cost center into a growth engine by reducing friction, optimizing security and privacy protection, and unlocking new revenue opportunities. Her influence can be seen across global initiatives, including UK open banking and US and Canadian health IT efforts. An author, speaker, and board member, Eve is known for connecting technical reality with business outcomes and for showing why, when identity is done right, it becomes one of the most powerful levers of competitive advantage. So, welcome, Eve. I'm delighted to be speaking with you today.
Well, likewise. Thanks so much.
Now, for those who don't know, Eve has written a fantastic book, Mastering Digital Identity from Risk to Revenue. I see you've got a copy there in your background. I have a
I
copy right here
do. Oh, that's
too.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm required to have it in frame.
Well, how could I not? Everyone in the identity community seems to be reading and talking about your book right now.
That's awesome.
And it obviously draws on a lot of your experience, which is extensive. And you say that the book is written for CEOs, board members, and senior executives who didn't sign up to be identity experts, but are already accountable for the consequences. And I think many of us working in identity could say something similar, right? We didn't necessarily plan a career in identity, but somehow we found ourselves here and never left. So, was your own journey into identity similar, and what was it that kept you hooked?
Oh gosh. Well, everyone I know sort of gets hooked on identity, don't we? It's just so, there's something so personal about it, along with all the technology, which is very cool and very challenging. I really did back into it at a time, as you say, 26 years ago, when we weren't really using the I word to describe it. I had gotten roped into a little effort with what was then a partner of Sun Microsystems, where I was at the time, to work on a protocol leveraging all the ways that XML was starting to be used for machine-to-machine communications for security services. And that grew into the SAML effort, and which I ended up being the first chair of. And as I like to point out to people, it's called the security assertion markup language. Like, where's the I? We didn't really talk so much about identity then. It hadn't coalesced into a thing. But what's easy to get hooked onto is the fact that it's transferring information about us. We of course, if we've come from a security background or even an IT background, we want to be sure that flinging that information across the internet is done correctly, properly, securely, for the right reasons. And that became what identity is about, kind of the first modern expression of identity. So um, I just ended up becoming this kind of expert for the SAML group for, leading it, and also the XML expert at the time, which was very important. It's decreased in importance since. Um, but I've never left, and I've never seen a reason to leave. It's just so fascinating and so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people in our community will really resonate with that. And especially women identity members, I think they'll find your journey very inspiring. So that's great to understand. Thank you. And here's a quote from the book. So, identity isn't about technology, it's about the humans who use it, the organizations that depend on it, and the world we're all creating together. And that's stuck out to me because Women in Identity's mission is centered around ensuring identity systems work for humans, and the diversity of human experiences. So, what's your take on how we can build identity systems for diverse communities that are not only secure but inclusive?
Yeah, this is it's really important, especially in an age where we're talking about non-human identity so much, to remember that everything is really in service of humans and the, societal structures that they put together. And I feel like the book has this frame that identity needs to be treated as a product in the organization. And I feel like that frame gives an answer to the question because whereas oftentimes identity programs are, they're IT programs and they have stakeholders and I almost just want to fall asleep when I hear the word stakeholder. That's terrible. But like, it becomes something less important than we need it to be. That process becomes less important than we need it to be to support what people want out of technology. And whether that's people in the context of, hey, I've got a job, I need to, achieve certain aims, or I'm an end user out there in the world. And so when you turn all the stakeholders into customers for your product, you suddenly become responsible as like the strategy person in charge of the voice of the customer. And diversity in a customer base is it's one of the things that real product managers, real product owners have to look after and ask, how do I satisfy, the entire the long tail of people's experiences and needs? We experience this in identity projects all the time where, not everybody is capable of using or wants to use, the right kind of mobile device. Maybe they're in circumstances where they can't use it. Increasingly I'm seeing questions arise about like people who are frontline workers, people who are out there in the world interacting with customers and don't have their face buried in a device all day long. These are really important considerations. Um, as well, one of the things that I've been working on recently with a number of others in the community is what's called DADE, which is death in the digital estate. So not a very, you know, cheering thought, but like, facing the fact that we all have these digital footprints, these digital estates. And when somebody passes away, if say you're a caregiver, and you're kind of left trying to figure out, well, what do we do now? How do we get into all that important information? How do we respect, our loved ones' wishes? These are things that family members and, oftentimes women who will often be in a role of caregiver are left to figure out. And so there's many hard problems to solve in identity, but I feel like once we see that the entire scope of human existence as having entered the digital world, we have a much better shot of solving those problems.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's a really brilliant take on that conversation. Um, yeah, and like you say, caregivers do often end up being women, and so perhaps they're disproportionately affected if we don't consider these types of issues, right? Um, so yeah, we would love to see more organizations getting this right when it comes to identity. Um, so if we imagine an organization that has got identity right, what does that actually look like? And even in that ideal state, what are the hardest problems that still remain unsolved?
Yes. So some of what I am advising companies on at this point, and this comes, straight from the thinking in the book, is taking a no compromises attitude. And obviously, if you are a product owner, you have to make trade-offs, but they can be graceful trade-offs and only reached for when necessary. So the no compromises attitude says, well, we're constantly weighing security against experience or privacy against security. There's many ways in which we can take away the need to choose. And we're often not leveraging all the tricks of that we can. And also there's new technology in the picture that helps us do that, like passkeys enable kind of like a rising tide of both security and experience when done right. Um, and doing identity right also requires making it board relevant. So if you're an identity leader, and I was in this wonderful track at Identiverse, that was the Women at Identiverse track where I was moderating a panel about what it looks like to sort of transition into leadership. You need to make it relevant to the business in a very direct way. Otherwise, it's easy not to succeed at these things. Now, some of the hardest problems that remain, even if a program is done right, a strategy is done right around identity, they're really terrible, and I think there's more societal awareness around them. So one of them is business models that incentivize bad behavior, despite the best efforts of identitarians, right? So data monetization is a real concern, and we see lazy marketing choices be made with personally identifiable information, kind of the volume that's traded around, and the abuse of that information, the ignoring of consent that we might have given or withdrawn or not given. Um, these are things that are very hard for identity people to solve all by ourselves. And so getting identity right really does mean making it relevant to all the other folks in the picture. And then, like the last hard problem that I think I'll mention is the surveillance problem, the over verification problem. Like, we're seeing a real trend, kind of a pernicious trend in some cases around age verification, like hard age verification, which has impacts not just on young people, but on everybody, because if you really want to do a good job, you got to make everybody do it. So
Mhm.
these are some of the challenges that I think we've been waving a flag around in our industry. We can't solve them alone. So those are important things around getting identity right and how right we can get it working alone.
Yeah, yeah, really interesting points, and yeah, absolutely agree with all of those. That's a brilliant insight into how you're thinking about all these issues, and I would really encourage people to pick up the book and look into more of your recommendations. There's obviously a huge amount more that we could discuss. I'm not going to take up too much of your time today, and everyone should pick up the book to learn more. If we could just leave our community with one thought. Book makes a compelling case for identity as a driver of trust, resilience, and even revenue. If you could persuade everyone working in identity to ask just one question about identity to their leadership team, what would you want that question to be?
Oh, yeah. And this gets at the heart of why I wrote a book called Mastering Digital Identity for an audience of CEOs, actually, the hardest possible audience because they don't care. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, well, how do I make them care? Um, I guess I guess I would say if you have the opportunity to, say go straight to your CEO and, probably a skip level conversation at this point and ask one question, I would start by saying our business model already runs on identity. Is it built on purpose or by accident? Because, all CEOs really want is simple things, market dominance, stay out of jail, keep their job another week, according to the board by, being compliant. And that's kind of it. It's very simple. And I think if we translate it into those terms, I think we can get somewhere.
Yeah, I like that. It's really thought-provoking, isn't it? And I feel like it won't put them on the back foot, it won't get them too defensive. I think it's a good.
Yeah, that's my hope. Although I
Yeah,
do spend the
yeah.
first two chapters kind of trying to scare them. So
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Eve. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you today.
as well.
Thank you for sharing your experience and your insights and obviously the thinking behind mastering digital identity. And thank you not just for joining us today, but for the incredible contribution you've made to the identity community over the years. I know a lot of our women in identity community find it really inspiring, and it's been wonderful having you with us today.
Oh, thanks for saying all that. That's wonderful. It's been a real joy. Thanks so
Oh,
much.
okay. Thank you.